David,
Hey,
how are you?
I'm doing excellent. How are you doing?
Me too. I think I'm gonna have to write lyrics to that opening one of these days.
That would be fabulous.
For us to sing when you come on. How you doing, my friend?
I'm doing good. It's nice
Yeah,
to be back.
it is
Nice to
nice
be
to
in
be back.
conversation. We got a great group.
Yeah, it is Monday and it's March 8th. It's hard to believe we're coming into spring and people are starting to get their shots, and maybe there's a little light at the end of the tunnel,
I
eh?
think so. I mean, we don't have that much information yet where
Right?
everyone can readily find out where to get it, but it's coming.
Yeah,
And March, April will be a big month. And I
yeah.
think people, with their patience, which has been sort of at the end of the rope, will hold through.
I
Things will be.
know. I know. Well, I just want to welcome everybody once again to Conversations on the Green. I think these are one of my favorite things because you just get to talk to people that we haven't seen in a long time, and it's a really special night. And just some things beforehand that there is a little chyron at the bottom of the screen. So if people watching and they care to donate anytime during the broadcast, all you have to do is click on the link below, and any donation, if you care to, would be wonderful. And if you, but we welcome you to tonight's conversation.
And also, you can contribute to the conversation by adding your voice, asking a question. There should be a link right beside you on the right. If there isn't, you should be able to write a question there. If not, there's a link to get you to a place where you can write a question. We'd love to hear from you.
So tonight, Dave, you want to do the honors?
Well, we have the people who work, the wonderful artists that work in the lighting, the costume, the sets that really bring our shows
And sound.
to life. And sound.
Yeah.
And it's wonderful to have them all together to talk about what they do and educate our audience. And we'll start off with a couple of women.
Oh yeah. Okay. So first is a lighting designer, and I want to say I mean I have the list here too. Her name is Siobhan Sleuth, and she was the lighting designer for Stars of David, Therefore Choose Life, The Jazz Singer, Times They Are Changing, Brighton Beach Memoirs, Bar Mitzvah Boy, Dr. Ruth, Knishes and Grits. Where was she for the other shows? I don't know, but let's bring her on. Hello, Siobhan.
Hi guys, how are you?
Hey, great to have you.
Nice to see you.
Hi, and nice to see you guys too.
Okay, and we're going to bring another lady who's who's a wonderful costume designer. She's done for us To Life, The Jazz Singer, Mikvah, Brighton Beach Memoirs, Bar Mitzvah Boy, Dr. Ruth, an old friend, Alex Amini.
Hi.
Alex, great to see you.
Not old, you know what I mean.
Oh no, we're old friends.
Yeah, nice to see you.
Nice to see you.
And now for the gentleman, we have a gentleman who's actually a nationally recognized costume designer and wardrobe stylist. He's performed backstage. Well, no, he's done so many shows across Canada, and his work is described as character-driven, tailored, and exceptionally detailed. I know this because I read it on his website. Ladies and gentlemen, Sean Mulcahy.
Hi.
Yeah.
That's quite the intro. Thank you.
And now
it was written beautifully.
Yes. One more gentleman to come on board, Christopher Stanton, who, my God, he has so many hats. He's the artistic director of ARC. He's a producer, a composer, an actor, a director, and he's been an amazing sound designer. That's just some of his credits. For The Whipping Man, New Jerusalem, Becoming Dr. Ruth, actually, the wonderfully talented Christopher Stanton.
Hey, on the website though, David, it also said award-winning. I don't know if you got that far.
It's true. You're all award-winning.
Humble.
In our minds, that's for sure. So welcome, everybody.
Yeah.
Thank you.
It's great. We've never had a conversation. It's usually with a performer, but I thought Dave and I thought it'd be so wonderful for our audience to see where the magic really happens, in the designs of the show. I mean, for me, as an actor for so many years, I mean, the stuff that happens on the stage, but to me, the magic was always how a show has been brought to life backstage. You know, that to me is exciting from day one. So before we get into anything, how is everybody doing during this crazy time?
You know,
Pretty
we
good.
talked about that earlier. We're talking about everybody's doing okay.
Yeah.
For the actors in this country, I mean, they do have an opportunity, some of them, to work in film and TV, which is actually going through the roof right now.
Yep.
But I wonder sometimes, and I saw on Facebook now and again, how difficult it is for the theater artists that work behind the scenes to continue in their job. You know, what do you do? How have you pivoted? If you want, one of you want to take that.
I'll go first. Yeah, I pivoted a little bit. I had all of my shows canceled, like everybody else. Then you just sort of, you sit in your underwear for 2 months and figure out what you're going to do with your BFA. And then, I just tried to, I started doing more photography work and catalog styling, which is I always did anyways. I just started putting more emphasis on that for the time being to make ends meet. And then a couple projects came my way. There was a theater company that canceled one of my shows, and then they decided they were going to build it. They were just going to put it in storage and wait until they could mount it. So that happened. And then I got a call for Illusionarium, the new magic immersive exhibit that's happening in Toronto. And so I'm designing magician's costumes.
That's exciting.
So cool.
Yeah. So, it's similar work, still creative, not exactly where I'd like to be, but having a good time and, learning about magic and all the behind the scenes stuff, all the things that, I'm sure I signed a document somewhere, but I'll tell you, I don't care. You want to know how people float? I'll tell you.
Good. Chris, how you been?
Good. Yeah. I mean, like I got really lucky in terms of the timing of a couple of things that were coming up in just my professional life. Like like you mentioned, I mean, sound design is something that I love to do, and it's something that I've done a lot of, and with Harold Green, it's been exclusively sound design. Which has been great, but it's like one of a few little hats, as you were mentioning, that I tend to wear. And just prior to the pandemic, sort of shutting everything down, like I was just working on the last show that I was going to be working with ARC for. So they now have a new artistic producing team, ARC does. And I had sort of we were working on sort of like setting it up for this big sort of like finish, and then we didn't get to finish the run. But the really fortunate part of it was that at the same time I'd been offered a gig as the festival director out here in Hamilton of the Hamilton Fringe. So despite the fact that we ended up having to cancel the festival last year, it was, it was a job. It was a job that I was able to sort of like hold on to, and the executive there and the board there were really solid about making sure that, that we were able to sort of like create something digital for folks last year during the summer. So I fell into a really lucky position just right at that time. Which is, it's kept me occupied. I've done some like online, I've been directing, performance classes online and that kind of stuff. But
Cool.
So there's been a bit of a shift that way. And I'll tell you, directing a show through kind of like Zoom and, like OBS and all of the apps that you have to use to get something out to people in the world. It sure makes me miss being in a room with people making work and just jamming together,
Yeah, for sure.
Places that. Yeah.
Alex?
Yes.
Correct.
It hit fast and it hit hard, that's for sure. But at the same time, the blessing of my third grandchild and really took up a lot of time. And I was absolutely over the moon thrilled for the first time in 25, 30 years to actually being able to take that time.
Yeah.
Because normally time is a luxury I have given up. and it was quite remarkable to step back and refresh. And then come September, I guess through the summer was great, just not to think about it at all. Through the fall, we did some online stuff with Branksome. We taught some classes. We did some seminars back into commercial rentals, because I, of course, have a quite a large warehouse. So we were able to supply commercial wardrobe for some spots and that sort of thing. And then when this last phase of lockdowns happened, we sort of shut it all down again, and we'll just see what happens this spring.
Sure. Good. And Siobhan.
Yeah.
Well, when it shut down, everything was. It's funny because with lighting, there's nothing I can really do.
Yeah.
My whole art form is like response to other people and like response to actors on stage and everything. So I baked a lot.
Yeah.
And in fact, I'm going to be really well prepped for our next first rehearsal, guys. I make bagels now. I make really great bagels.
Wow.
I learned how to make challah. I watched a lot of Great British Bake Off, and I was doing all the technical bakes. So, I mean, that's been really great. And then lately, I mean, now because the good news is coming and people are starting to plan ahead. Now I find myself working on Zoom shows, and I'm working with George Brown students right now and sort of teaching them how to light themselves in their own apartment, and so that how they look good in a Zoom adaptation of Three Sisters.
Wow.
And doing that, and also working towards a show at Pass Marai right now that it's going to be outdoors. The lighting's all inside, lighting inside the building, but using the building as a choreographic element. So the light will be the choreography. So I've sort of been, as of late, I'm sort of trying to find things like that. And then obviously still baking like 4 times a week.
Wow.
Okay.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that's what I've been doing.
That's a great segue, because you mentioned Judy Weinberg. So so happy to see everyone.
Aw.
Likewise. That's a great segue, Siobhan. I mean, you talking about being a lighting designer and stuff like that. That it's tough at these times. Can you? I think let's go around once again and just tell our audience exactly what you do. What does a lighting designer do, from getting the script and reading it, and how do you envision your professional, what you do best?
Well, I mean, everything obviously starts with the script.
Right.
We always start with the words and the words on the page, and then the next step is usually meeting with the director and talking to the director and seeing, because while I see the script one way, it's also like how they see the script and how they want to present the script is obviously a huge influence on the choices that I make. So
do you see colors? Do you when you read a script, do you see read color, or mood, or
I read mood, I read time of day, and breakdowns of the location, and so sometimes the rhythm of the text, you can feel the rhythm of what the lights are going to do. And if it's going to be like a really moody piece, or just a bright and colorful piece that you just really want to see the actors' faces and clearly hear them speaking, and more face light.
Yeah.
Sometimes you need that.
Yes.
Right, Avery?
I know. I have a tendency, Siobhan.
I know.
To say it's funny. It's a funny play. I need to see their faces.
I love it. That's what I love. I love it.
Siobhan has done several of the musicals that you were involved with, Ave.
Yeah. Well, a jazz singer. Did you do?
Yeah, jazz singer. Yeah.
Jazz singer, and oh my God, and there you look at oh my God, beautiful.
That was a great one.
Look at that. I mean, I'll go to Alex next, because look at these. I mean,
The costumes and the lighting, and
the
how they're
costumes and the lighting look like. I mean, and I'm sure that's no mistake.
It's not an accident. No.
So I mean, so Alex, I mean,
Yeah.
talk about what
Okay.
happened in your world. And
Right. So again, the script, the words, the conversation with the director. Then there's also marrying, for me, marrying the actors and the personality of the actors with the character that's written on the page, and trying to find a way to marry those two together, because you can do the same show 20 different times with 20 different casts and have 20 different completely different shows. Then depending on what the show is, if there's an historical element, you certainly have to bring that in. I usually think in texture and color. And a lot of times, like a big overview for, like if you take Jazz Singer, if you take an overview for a single character, it might be sort of summed up in feathers, or it might be summed up in, some kind of bold stripe or something kind of muted. And it might be a swatch, or it might be a prop, or it might be something that symbolizes that character, that forms the basis of the wardrobe that lives in your closet. And a contemporary show might be, where does this person shop? Where, like, how did they amass the clothes that are in their closet, and why did they choose to wear those things out of the closet in particular situations? So something like the show actually is built around a cardigan, the cardigan that she wears, because the cardigan for me is all about swaddle. And so she was protecting herself from herself. She was protecting herself from the outside world. She was trying to figure things out. And for me, it was all about the swaddle. Wow. So take it off, put it on, wrap it around your hips, do whatever you want with it, but it represents your angst, or you're questioning what's going on. It was all about that cardigan. And so we needed to get that cardigan in to the show some way.
Was that something that was discussed with Phil Aiken, the director, or was this you?
Yes. Yeah. Very early on, it was one of the things that I brought to him and said, I think what we need is for her to have this cardigan. I'm sorry, I can't remember the character's name. For Brighton Beach, it's kind of color palette or whatever, but it's the texture of a piece of lace, or there's something that is at the bottom of a sewing box, because women spend a lot of time just at home, and it's like, what is their life? I'm going to sit around and I'm going to mend this antimacassar, or like this, or this little piece of lace, or this something, and so those things need to be elements, because that's what cool. They did. So every show is completely different, and I never know. The big surprise, I never know when I read the script which one of those elements is going to jump out at me. But they do. Nice
to be surprised.
And Sean, I mean, talking about Brighton Beach, I mean, your costume and set.
Yeah.
Brighton Beach was probably one of our most elaborate, magnificent sets that we've ever had.
Oh my God.
So spectacular.
I know. Oh my God. Walking into the theater and seeing that. Oh, yeah. Look at that. Oh my God. It looks like a doll's house. I mean, it's unbelievable. It looks like a little miniature.
It was actually on MLS after we finished.
Look at that. And the lighting and the costume. It was
God, it was so great.
It was so beautiful.
Yeah.
Look at that.
What inspired you? I know that there was great height in our theater, but was that always your idea with 2 stories, or and the specifics around the house, if you want to talk about that?
With Brighton Beach Memoirs, for sure, I wanted 2 stories. I didn't want to fake it. I didn't want to have, 3 steps up and then we're on a 2nd floor. I wanted that heightened realism. I love a challenge. I love challenging my peers by putting a roof on something so that the lighting designer has to work harder. And I just, every design that I do, I want it to be unique, and I want it to be a big, like, I've worked with you guys for a few different projects, and I like the contrast between each of them. They all have I certainly have a bit of a signature style. I'm very painterly in what I do, but when you compare something like Brighton Beach Memoirs to actually, like, what I'm trying to do is give your audience something new and extravagant to look at, so that it's a brand new experience every time they walk into that space. So we're reimagining. This is in the same space, right?
Such a cool set.
Yeah, it was one of my favorites, to be fair, of all time, not just with Harold Green. I'm really proud of that one.
Why can you just elaborate a little bit on that? Like, what is it? Why was it one of your favorites? What makes that a favorite? I mean,
for a bunch of reasons. I mean, Brighton Beach was up there too. I think it shows that I'm invested in. I was really confident in the design of Actually. I was really confident in the layout that I was doing. I knew how I wanted it to look. I knew that I wanted to have that sort of university quad feel to it, but I wanted it to be a quad that people in Toronto recognize. So I really wanted it to be that York Ryerson sort of feel, something that the audiences could really connect to. And like, unlike Alex, like I get images when I read it that first time, and I know, like I knew immediately that I wanted that drywall circle in the middle as a platform. I knew I wanted that. I knew I wanted concrete. And then the rest of it kind of grew from there. And also just with a company like Harold Green and a director like Philip Aiken, there's a trust there, because I've worked with you guys and I've worked with Philip a bunch of times. So I didn't get a lot of pushback from him. I told him what it was going to be like and said, you're going to love it. And and that's it. But I also, what I will say, like, again, with both of those shows, I when I'm reading it the first few times, I think as a director as well. Like, I think about blocking. I think, how are we going to get from the dining room to the living room, and what kind of angles are important for the actor to stand on, and that kind of thing, which is how we got to, I mean, one of my favorite little intimate moments is the boys in Brighton Beach Memoir climbing out their bedroom window and sitting on the roof in that little vignette. And that was something that I thought of early on. That was a blocking thing that I thought, I can get a really special moment here. And, if Siobhan gets it right, it'll look great.
and it always does.
She always does.
It always does.
That's one of the first pictures you sent me too. That was a good. It was a great moment. That.
Oh, it was beautiful.
Christopher, I mean, selfishly, when we did Becoming Dr. Ruth, it was my second time directing. I was so grateful to have you, because you're a director yourself. So I had a vision of partly of what I wanted with the soundscape, but to bounce ideas off you and take your suggestions was so supportive and elevating for me.
No, I remember really enjoying that process too, David. Like, it was Sean sort of mentioned something about trust and how important that is, and when you have it, it's something that is a gift. So, being able to sort of collaborate, I've always, I always in the work that I do when I'm directing, I always sort of try to activate people as full artists, so that they're not sort of sitting on ideas that might be, the way to move the show forward in some interesting way, so I always try to encourage folks to collaborate, kind of like to bounce around outside their lanes a little bit, which is, for better or for worse, it's how I tend to work. Sometimes I remember actually one of the first shows that I did with Philip, because I did Whipping Man at Harold Green, as well as actually did both of those with you guys and with Obsidian. And one of there's Whipping Man, and again, same thing as Sean was mentioning, just the trust. And I had, I saw the script, I read the script, and had this idea. It was just oh, this is definitely sad guitar. There's sad guitar here. I kind of I think like Siobhan was mentioning, I think rhythmically, in terms of what the script feels like, and it's this isn't a show with a bunch of snaps up and down in the lights and because you sort of have to think, you sort of do have to have kind of a camera A, camera B thing going on when you're designing, where you're sort of you're working on your own little thing, but it really does matter how it fits in with the rest of everything.
Right.
You know, really, yeah. So like integrating the rhythm of what you're doing with the lighting design, with where the actors are on stage, with the feel of what the set and the costumes are doing, and all of that, you know, in concert with the director, it makes a huge difference. So sometimes it's a mood, sometimes it's an instrument, sometimes it's but I remember talking about straying outside of your lanes. Philip, who trusted me from he gave me my first professional gig as a sound designer. They were like, I just happened to be in the room for something else. I think I was like doing something at factory and getting something out of the room. And Philip was like, we don't have a sound designer yet for this. Chris, what are you doing? You do sound, right? And I just was like, yes, I do now professionally. Like I'd been doing it for my own shows for years, and there was a point where he and Rebecca Pitcherak was working lights, and the three of us were trying to solve this moment. And I just like, you know, and Rebecca's a very collaborative worker as well, and so is Philip. So we were all sort of like click, 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 click on this thing. And I said to Philip, like, you know what this transition needs, Philip, is they need to run up to the side of, like, they're walking up to the front of the stage, and then we hear the bell happen. They need to run. If they run, it'll all match. It'll match what Rebecca and I are doing. And I said it very quietly just to him. And he goes, yeah. All right, everybody, in an effort to take over my job as well, Chris has suggested something that I think might be worth doing. Like,
That's amazing.
Immediately chastened.
I have a question for you. I'm sure it's a big trust thing also, because trust in your own innate talents, because I think everybody from actor to director to designer wants to be the star of the show. How do you leave your ego at the door and become do you know what I mean? Like that.
I do.
To be a cohesive group, because, you know, sometimes you want the lighting, sometimes, because you see shows sometimes where lighting overwhelms, or a set just overwhelms, and you know, is too big or too, and something's amiss. So, is this a conversation you have of all the four of you together, along with the director, or how? Is it hard to park your ego at the door? I mean, I guess I'm asking too. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think it depends on the project. Like there are sometimes you can get very precious with a project, and
yes,
if you're very passionately about an idea and you want to fight for an idea, then yeah, absolutely that can happen. And it is hard to. I mean, the key is to remember that it's not about you; it's about what's on stage. It's about what we're putting on stage, and it is hard to remember that sometimes. Yeah. But in the end, it's really about the audience enjoyment. It's about making something that speaks to the audience, and being able to look back and or step back, I should say, and take it in as a whole.
So, I never leave my ego at the door. I back down from fights, and you know, and I certainly compromise and stuff like that. But God, no, every project I do is like it's my newest favorite, and I want it to be the best. Yeah. So yeah, no, I'm completely I don't think people hire me to leave my ego at the door. I think you know what you're getting when you sign that contract.
But it's not like you don't come into a room being like, here's how it's gonna be, and you're gonna work to my. Like,
not anymore.
You're still, I think you're more collaborative than you're giving yourself credit for here.
It's true. No, I do collaborate, and Siobhan's right. Like you got to check yourself from time to time. You have to, realize what elements are most important to you that you need to keep in, and what can you sacrifice. I often over design because I know that I'm going to have to cut something, or I'm going to have to save a budget, or I'm going to have to make a sacrifice somewhere. So I already know what those four things are when I come into a presentation. And then, when I'm told, okay, we have to worry about budget, or, this is not going to work with this element of somebody else's design, or the performer's not coming, then you go, okay, well, I guess I guess I can give you that one. But meanwhile, I knew I was going to cut that. I knew I had.
Oh, that's
that.
fascinating.
Yeah, I do it all the time.
We now know your secrets.
I know.
I know, but it's really surprising because there's been a few times where I've never had to dip into that magic back pocket, and I'm always like, I can't. And I joke about it afterwards. It's often like with someone like Matt or whoever the production manager is, and I'm like, I can't believe you gave me a 2-story set. Like, how did you approve that? There are times where you're just sort of like, what possessed you to let me go down this road? But thank you. Yeah, I do tend to have things like you do. You have your priorities. I'm sure Alex does too. There's hero elements that you think,
yeah,
these are things that
you'll fight for. From a costume perspective, for me, I mean, there's you guys, just dealing with you guys, which always seems to be a piece of cake for me. Like all of you, Avery, David, the same thing. It always seems to be that it's like there's so much respect for what we do in the whole group that's not a problem. Sometimes your enemy is time. Sometimes your enemy is the words on the page and trying to reconcile them with what actors want or what an audience might be expecting. And sometimes those are, for me, are the hardest things to reconcile. And it never seems prudent for me to go into a project with a locked-in idea, because through collaboration and through conversation with everybody that's involved, and costumes are a little bit different because there is a tremendous amount of input from actors. Although, I'll tell you, I have a limit. Anyway, but there is a tremendous amount of collaboration that has to happen with actors. And sometimes it's all just psychological, and you have to drive around in circles in order to get what you want at the end game anyway, but make them feel like they got there first. So,
it's fascinating,
right? So it's sometimes it's incredibly circuitous, but I do find that especially in theater, there seems to be so much respect for everybody's department in what we do that it makes the whole experience remarkable. I mean, let's be honest, nobody's doing this to get rich. We all do this because we absolutely love it and we need to do it. And for me, I love it and I need to do it. And so being able to work with people like you makes it worthwhile.
That's nice.
I think sorry, I was going to say, I think you have to trust the process too. I think you do have to roll with the punches, and the older that you get, the easier it is to give up on things. When you're first building your career, you want everything perfect, and like, I mean, I'm a perfectionist regardless, but there's so much more that you fight for because you want those portfolio picks, you want this, you want that, and then you start to learn. You learn about the team effort, you learn about the collaboration, you learn about the process, and you learn through trial and error how much better product you can give as a production as a whole if you are taking those notes from each other and allowing the room to breathe a little bit, allowing the actors to have an opinion that you're not going to take, but let them say it, like, right?
It's got to be frustrating at times too, I'm sure, because as opposed to a Mervis show, where you have the luxury of a good budget and a long rehearsal period, and not for profit, you're lucky if you have your 2.5 weeks, 3 weeks rehearsal, and you have two or three tech days. So that's got to be tough at times. I mean, Siobhan, we've had short tech periods, and where you're lighting, for the first preview and all through the preview, you're still adding layers upon layers upon layers. So it's got to be and I'm sure sound too, and set pieces and costume pieces for the first preview. It's just not there a lot of the times. We keep adding until it's there. So can you speak to that a little bit? Is that frustrating at times, I'm sure? And
It can be. I mean, like, time. Alex kind of touched on it, that time can be the enemy.
Mhm.
It can, and sometimes the play, as you sort of picture it in your mind with the director, like when you're having your first conversations about sort of what the design, what the show might sound like, or sort of how elaborate you want that to be. Depending on, you learn quickly, like, to, the first few shows I was designing sound on were like, 200 sound cues for like a fringe show. You know what I mean? Like, where, like, you don't forget tech rehearsal week. Like, you're down and dirty. You might get a run in a 3-hour sort of like tech rehearsal time, and then you're in front of people. You're in front of strangers, and that that level of I'll be generous and call it ambition. Possibly folly is a better sort of like overreach. You do sort of like learn to right size to what the envelope is, and sort of like better sort of like gear your work to be the best possible work within a certain amount of time or a certain amount of resources, whether those are financial or otherwise. You get better as you go at sort of working within whatever the situation is. You know what I mean? So like, unless I find that unless things change drastically, I sort of like, I tend to be okay. It's when suddenly you're like, oh, by the way, we don't have 3 speakers, or, like, we've lost 3 tech days or whatever it is. That's when I start getting a bit of heartburn, when the ground shifts underneath you. But generally I've learned to just kind of like get what I get and don't get upset, kind of thing.
And starting with you, Siobhan, what's your favorite part of the process?
Lighting levels. Tech. I like tech. I like that intense. When we're just setting cues and like working with Chris or whoever the sound designer is, and getting the timings and just running it over and over, so we get this slick show.
The fine-tuning of it.
And watching that, and also those moments. Those moments in rehearsal that you get to see as a member of the creative team that people don't always get to see, like that first moment that an actor really understands a beat, and you get to see it the first time. You get to see the first time they cry. You get to like seeing those moments, and I kind of miss the most.
Yeah.
In like that energy that you get like in a rehearsal when like something lands for the first time, or we all laugh together for the first time, or we all like that stuff. I find after a year out, that stuff I really miss. But my answer is tech still.
And Sean, your favorite moment in the process?
There's a few, but I do like seeing my work under lights. I like seeing it lit properly, because without lighting, it's masking tape and a hope and a prayer painted over, right? Like, there's a lot of theatrics that go on, and there's a lot that is visible to the naked eye. But once you add in that textural element, you add in that lighting break, you add in those things. Then there's Freud. There's a
life.
Yeah, it changes it, and suddenly you see what was in your mind's eye in reality. And I really love that moment, and I love it when it's really special, like when the lighting designer has done something really special, because you don't know, like, you're not in their head, and until it's physically on the stage, you don't know what's happening. You can look at a cue or look at a focus level set, and it's not going to give you the actual moment in time, right? And so there's, I love having that gasp moment where I clutch my pearls at the back of the house. And I'm like, yay, yeah. That's a special moment, and you sort of kind of at that point, that's when my shoulders start to drop and my anxiety starts to drop a little bit, because I'm like, I've done my job, and now I get to hand it over to the next artist to take it to the next level, right? And also, I'm a big fan of like the walkthrough, where you've got the set, it's, hopefully almost done, and the actors are there for the first time and they're seeing their little corner of the world. And I always, I'm heavily detailed, so I always put little things in for the actors. Like I'll put a little special something in their corner, a little book that ties into their character, or a little special blanket, or something that is unique, that just gives them a little bit of it's a little like Easter egg for them, and I like it when they see those, or when they find them. And yeah.
Amazing. Alex?
I think my favorite part of the process are the fittings.
Oh, that's so cool. The beginning.
Yeah, because
building. Yeah.
right. You take relatively two-dimensional things and suddenly you see them in 3 dimensions. You also see the actors put on a character like a skin, and the change that comes over them when they suddenly realize how you have viewed them all this time. So there's a realization for them. There's also the realization for you when you see, because I will visualize it and I'll visualize it in motion, but you get to actually see it on a body, and you get to see how they move in those things. And so then I can then take all that information and make as many changes as I need to make in order to get it where I wanted it. But the fittings for me, in that there's something really wonderful about that one-on-one time with the actor. Well, it's actually, there are 3 of us in the room, right? There's me, there's the actor, there's the character. And let's all come together and see this develop, this little thing. And so I'm super protective of those fitting times. I really, really love them. And then I'm with Sean and Siobhan the second those lights hit, and you see the set, the light, and the costume, and the magic that's created as the actor moves through and finds that spot and that moment, and just so delicious.
Oh God, I miss it.
It's so nice to talk about it.
Oh my God,
it's true.
Yeah.
It's so nice to talk, and it's such a collaborative art form.
It absolutely is.
Yeah. And it all comes together, and the authenticity is there with everything: the sound, the lights, the look, the set, the costumes. It just tells you the magic is there.
The fittings are really special. I mean, like as someone who also works with wardrobe sides, they are. It's you're seeing actors in their most vulnerable. 90% of the time in their underwear. You're hearing about their experience, the rehearsal hall, good, bad, and ugly. You're a counselor, you're a designer, you're a cheerleader, you're all sorts of things. And there is that I will say that when I'm just doing sets on a show, there is something a little bit of a miss when I don't get to have that one-on-one time in those fittings, those really like private moments. I mean, they're not all good. Like, let's face it, there are some difficult people, but there are some wonderful moments, and like I'm sure Alex knows that feeling where they finally got the costume on and they turn and they look in the mirror and they put their hands on their hip and they have that big power pose where they're like, yeah, and you're silently doing this, right?
Realize, oh my God, it has a pocket.
Yeah.
Oh my God, it has a pocket.
That's how I always felt when I had a toupee. We had to wear a toupee in the show. Oh yeah. I like it. What's your favorite moment?
This is the Avery that could have been.
Yeah. Chris, what's your favorite moment with?
I'm right alongside Siobhan when it comes to tech. Like I love, the sort of when it just the clicking of the thing together, and I can't help but think of it as just the music of it, like just the and I don't mean the music like the sound of it. I just mean the rhythm and the sort of like all of it clicking together. And when you're lucky enough to have like stage managers are incredibly underappreciated in just sort of like the world outside of theater. Like I don't think a lot of people maybe that have been lucky enough to work in the industry know how much of a weight is on the stage manager, because they run the rehearsal hall, they plan everything, they come up with the scheduling, they often work with the production manager to come up with the technical schedule and the production schedule. They're sort of the right hand person for the director, taking down like notes for blocking and all that stuff. And then on top of all of that, they gotta run the show. They have to like actually sit there and operate, or call the show at least. Like not necessarily some. I mean, some of them are actually like oftentimes you're understaffed and you need to actually have them operating either lights or sound too. But so when you're lucky enough to have a stage manager on top of all of the beauty of tech, when you're lucky enough to have a stage manager that has that sensibility of, because not all of them, like, I mean, people, they're human beings, right? So it's like, your competencies are greater or lesser in different areas. But sometimes when you get lucky and you get a stage manager that can play the thing like a piece of music, and you see exactly what's going on with it. Like, they get what you're doing with the lights and sound, they get the rhythm thing, they get the rhythm of what the director's been doing because they've been there the whole time. That for me is so exhilarating to see, sort of like the third or fourth like run where everybody's had a chance to sort of like own it, and getting that sort of like, so the first time that it sort of like lifts and you're like, oh, everybody gets it, we've got to play, I love it. That's always such a joy.
Yeah.
Wow.
But I love also that you guys, you've done so much work for us over the years for a community who's 99% Jewish, our audience. You've all become honorary Jews over the last couple of years.
I've still got my Star of David that you guys gave me off my first.
Hey, that beautiful velvet
pack,
like I've got mine too. It's right over there. It's a beautiful velvet little case, and
actually, it's hanging off of my Dora.
Oh, shut up.
Oh, there.
Just wanted to work that in there. No big deal.
Nice.
Yeah. No big deal, guys. But that's actually true. It is.
We have a very appreciative audience who
Yes.
tells us the production value that thanks to you guys that we bring them, how appreciative they are. And they go to Mervish, but they love coming to us and seeing the shows and being enthralled with the story and how that story is brought to life with all the attributes that you guys bring to it. So.
Yeah.
But you guys got to give yourself a bit more credit. I think some of the projects, a lot of the projects that you've done is of the quality of Mervish. Like I don't see it as, it's a combination of the right people in the room, the right script, and the fact that, if the people that are involved in the creative side of things are treating it as this is the best show, this is what we're gonna, like, you don't go in half-assed, right? Like you don't say, okay, we're doing a smaller regional, so I'm only going to put in this much effort. And that's something that I feel very strongly about, and there's a lot of people who will do that, and I mean, if my name's going on it, it doesn't matter whether it's an A house, a B house, a C house, an F house. I don't care. It's going to be the same quality across the board, and that's just a commitment to my art. And I don't understand when people think that's because yes, I mean, I get that there's a business side of things, and there is a lot of business involved, but you don't go into this to do 1/3 of the job. If you're going to take the contract, I treat every contract as if it's a Mervish contract. I treat it as if it's a Stratford contract. It doesn't matter where they land on the scale.
Great.
And sometimes you got to work harder because you don't have the same amount of money.
Oh yeah.
Similar.
How hard I work for you guys.
But you do have a tendency to hire good hearts. Like I have yet to work. Like I was thinking about sort of like one of the ways that makes it easy to let go of your ego in that way is that element of trust, right? And when you're lucky enough, like I on any one of the shows that I've been lucky enough to design for Harold Green, there has not been an a-hole on the team. You know what I mean? Like it's been solid. It's been solid, and that makes a huge difference, right?
Yeah. And you've done some great shows. New Jerusalem. with
Yeah,
Cushman.
that was. I think that was my first one with Harold Green. Mitchell Cushman directed that one.
Yeah.
He was out in the. It was out in the lobby for a little bit. That was fantastic.
Crazy.
I remember him telling me that he wanted, when people were coming into the to the theater, that it should, it was, obviously like coming into
a world, the world of Amsterdam. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And sort of
marketplace.
feeling like like you had the marketplace out front, and then coming into the actual sort of like it was set in a synagogue, was it not?
In a synagogue.
Yes.
Yeah. So coming into the synagogue, and I was thinking, so how, like, I know nothing about what that feeling is, and I asked Mitchell, because as a goy, I was just sort of like, I don't know, what's the feel you're looking for? And he said, I want it to sound like the final level of the Legend of Zelda Ocarina. And I was like, okay. I guess that's what it's like.
You know what?
So he was just thinking like completely, like, it was great. So it had all these tinkles and beautiful things. I'm like, oh, this is a wheelhouse I can work in comfortably.
Well, you guys, all you guys have big hearts, so that's why we keep coming back to you. Is it's like family. So we're very grateful for all the wonderful work that you do, and all the wonderful work that you've brought to the Herald Green. And before the hour is pretty much over, but we always like to finish with. Should
we introduce Matt?
Yeah, let's introduce Matt, our general manager of the Herald Green, and the guy who is the magic behind these StreamYard presentations, our general manager, Matt Birnbaum.
Matt Birnbaum.
Yay!
More like Matt Beardbaum.
Very nice.
Touche.
Thank you, Matt.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
We have before we say good night, I just want to let our audience know that our next conversation is on March 21st. It's a Sunday. It's at 2 p.m. And we're interviewing Lisa Rubin, who's the artistic director of the Siegel Center, and Ari Weinberg, who's the artistic director of Winnipeg Jewish Theatre. And we're going to talk about Canadian Jewish theatre. So that's 2 o'clock on March 21st. And we always like to finish our interviews with the Herald Green lightning round.
And it goes something like this.
We ask everybody questions.
One-word answers.
1 word or 2 word answers. So we'll go in a circle. So it'll be Siobhan, then Alex, and Chris, and then Sean. So the first question is, on your bagel, cream cheese or cream cheese and lox?
Cream cheese.
Cream cheese and lox.
Cream cheese and lox, capers, onions.
Cream cheese and lox.
Good one.
Okay, and now they're not all Jewish questions, but favorite Jewish food?
Challah bread.
Because you're baking now.
That's right.
Latkes.
Oh, nice.
Brisket.
Brisket.
I might be there with brisket.
Okay.
Favorite movie growing up?
Star Wars.
Oh.
Oh my God. Young Frankenstein.
Cool.
One of your favorite movies. Yeah.
2001: A Space Odyssey.
Oh, wow.
Cool.
Annie?
It's such a great bunch of answers.
Okay,
And now,
your favorite play. Your favorite play?
growing up.
And you can't say
Growing up?
Annie, Sean. What was that?
Favorite
Growing
play
up?
growing up?
Yeah.
Sure, growing up.
Les Mis.
Right, cool.
Oh man. Move over, Mrs. Markham.
Oh,
I'm with Siobhan. Les Mis made me cry the first time.
wow.
I have a soft spot for Anything Goes, the musical.
Cool.
Siobhan, tattoo.
No.
Alex?
No, and don't. They're stupid.
Tell us how
And
you
night. Chris?
No, but if I did have one, I probably wouldn't tell you now.
Sean?
No, but I do have a piercing.
Oh.
Oh.
That's so weird that none of us have one.
I know, isn't it
Well,
weird?
the majority of people that we've had on don't have.
Wow.
Huh.
Interesting, eh? Okay, pineapple on your pizza, yes or no?
Yes.
No.
Yes.
Yes, with green olives.
I would if I got a tattoo, it would be a pineapple.
There you go. And our final question is, if you had one word for the world today, what would that one word be?
Hope.
Nice.
Yeah, hope.
Breathe.
Yeah.
Breathe.
Relax.
Good.
Guys, thank you. This was an absolute pleasure. Thank you for your
Thank
time.
you.
And just by talking tonight, boy, really miss.
Yeah, whetted our appetites
Yeah, it sure
True.
does.
in the
I
theater.
can't wait.
You guys are family, and from David and I and Matt, thank you so much, and our audience watching. It was a pleasure.
It was great
Thank
to see
you.
all you guys again.
Yeah.
So good seeing your faces. It's true.
Yeah, cool. Good night, everybody. We'll
Good
see you
night. Thank you
Good
for watching.
night.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.